Imagine being told you're not good enough, that you can't do what the best of the best men can do. Now picture proving them so wrong that the entire military writes your name into history. That's exactly what happened when one woman faced the SEAL commander who laughed at her skills, only to later watch her do the impossible. Before I dive into this insane story of courage, betrayal, and revenge that will leave you stunned, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because you do not want to miss stories like this every single week. Ready? Buckle up, because this story is going to blow your mind. It all began on a scorching desert air base, where the sun burned like molten steel and the wind carried the taste of dust and war. Commander James Steele Hawkins, a Navy SEAL legend, was barking orders near the Apache helicopter hangar. The mission was clear. Take out 3 high-value enemy generals meeting deep inside hostile territory, protected by SAMs and heavy anti-aircraft fire. Everyone on base knew the risks. It was practically a suicide mission. The SEALs had failed twice before. Not even an Apache can hit that target, Steele muttered to his men, convinced it was impossible. That's when Captain Alexandra Lexi Carter, the only female Apache pilot in the unit, stepped forward. Her eyes were calm, like the ocean before a storm. "Give me the mission," she said. The laughter that erupted could have cracked the desert floor. "You?" Steele smirked. "You'll be shot out of the sky before you even get a lock on. Leave this to the men, Captain." Lexi didn't flinch. She'd heard it all before. The whispers that she was just a diversity hire. The jokes about her size compared to the hulking male pilots. But what they didn't know was that Lexi wasn't just any pilot. She had trained in secret for years, mastering a maneuver so dangerous it wasn't even in the manuals. She had one shot to prove them wrong. That night, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the base in blood-red hues, Lexi sat in her bunk replaying every insult in her mind. She remembered her father's words before he died in combat. "Real warriors don't ask for permission. They make history." And Lexi decided then and there she wasn't just going to hit that target. She was going to do it in a way that would make the world remember her name forever. But what she didn't know was that someone inside her own team would rather see her dead than successful, and they were already plotting to make sure she never returned from that mission alive. The next morning, tension gripped the base like a vice. Lexi walked toward her Apache, the rising sun glinting off its black fuselage like a predator ready to strike. Steele watched her with a grin that dripped arrogance. "One last chance to back out, Captain," he called out. "Wouldn't want the paperwork when you crash and burn." Lexi just smirked, climbed into the cockpit, and fired up the engines. As the rotors roared to life, she whispered under her breath, "Watch me." The plan was insane. Fly under enemy radar through the canyon, pop up near the compound, and eliminate the generals before the SAM sites could lock on. As Lexi soared into the sky, the desert spread beneath her like an endless battlefield. Her co-pilot, Lieutenant Mark Davis, was tense. "Lexi, this is nuts. We should turn back." But Lexi's voice was steel. "You strapped in or not, Lieutenant?" Silence. Then a shaky, "Strapped in." They thundered low through the canyon, dodging rock formations like ghosts. Suddenly, alarms screamed. Enemy radar had pinged them. "Incoming!" Mark yelled as a missile streaked across the sky like a dragon's breath. Lexi yanked the stick, flipping the Apache on its side in a move no sane pilot would attempt. The missile whooshed past, missing them by inches. "Holy, what the hell was that?" Mark gasped. Lexi grinned. "Something I call the widow's roll. You'll see more of it before we're done." They tore through the canyon, but what Lexi didn't know was that someone had tampered with her fuel gauge. It read full, but the reality was grim. They didn't have enough fuel to make it back. And as they closed in on the target, a voice crackled in her headset. "Abort mission, Captain. Repeat, abort. It's over." Steele's voice. But Lexi ignored him. because in her sights, the compound appeared like a fortress carved from the earth, and 3 enemy generals were about to learn why you never underestimate a woman with nothing to lose. The compound erupted in chaos as Lexi unleashed hell from the sky. Her missiles screamed through the air, slamming into guard towers and shredding defenses like paper. Enemy soldiers scattered like ants as explosions painted the night in orange fury. "Target locked!" Mark shouted. Lexi squeezed the trigger and the first general vanished in a fireball that shook the desert. But as they banked toward the second target, something slammed into their tail, a hit from an anti-aircraft gun. The Apache lurched, alarms blaring. "We're losing hydraulics!" Mark yelled. Smoke filled the cockpit. "We're not done yet," Lexi growled, flipping a switch to reroute power manually. The Apache roared back to life like a wounded beast refusing to die. They tore across the compound, unleashing another missile that obliterated the second general's command post. But then came the betrayal. Over the comms, Steele's voice hissed again. "Stand down, Carter, you're out of time." And suddenly, a second blip appeared on Lexi's radar, another Apache. It was Steele. "What the hell is he doing here?" Mark muttered. But Lexi already knew. He wasn't there to help. He was there to make sure she didn't come back. Steele's voice was cold as ice. "You should have stayed in your lane, Captain." Then his Apache fired, a missile screaming toward her. Lexi jerked the stick, but it was too late. The blast rocked her bird, sending them spiraling toward the ground. The last thing she heard before the impact was Steele's voice laughing in. Her headset. Darkness. Pain. Smoke. Lexi woke to chaos, the Apache a twisted ruin in the desert. Mark was barely conscious, blood streaming down his face. "Steele, he tried to kill us," he rasped. Rage burned through Lexi like wildfire. She dragged Mark out, hid him behind a dune, and checked her gear. Her rifle was intact, her sidearm loaded. She wasn't done, not by a long shot. Crawling through the sand, she spotted Steele's Apache circling overhead like a vulture. He thought she was dead. Big mistake. Lexi moved like a shadow, scaling a ridge as enemy trucks swarmed below. She rigged explosives from the wreckage and set a trap. When Steele landed near the compound to verify the kill, Lexi struck. The explosion ripped through his Apache, sending fire into the sky. Steele staggered out, dazed, reaching for his pistol, but Lexi was already there. Her boot slammed into his chest, pinning him to the ground. "You should have believed me," she hissed, pressing the barrel to his forehead. For a moment, Steele saw death in her eyes. But Lexi wasn't a murderer. She cuffed him instead, broadcasting his betrayal over open comms for the entire base to hear. The shockwaves were immediate. Command ordered Steele's arrest. Lexi dragged Mark to safety, stole an enemy truck, and drove them back through the night while enemy forces burned in chaos behind them. When they finally reached base at dawn, the men who once laughed at her stood in stunned silence. 3 enemy generals dead, a traitor exposed, and one woman standing tall like a war goddess against the rising sun. Lexi didn't smile. She just looked Steele in the eyes as the MPs hauled him away and said, "Not even an Apache could hit that target? Guess you were right, because I did it better." The legend of Captain Lexi Carter spread like wildfire, inspiring millions. And if you think that's the end of her story, think again, because this was only the beginning.